Imagine this, an app that seems harmless, maybe a weather tracker or a file organizer, but behind its friendly interface is Bad Bazaar, spyware designed to steal your personal data, your location, contacts, and even your private conversations without you ever knowing. Then there's Pegasus, the crown jewel of cyber espionage. It doesn't need you to click a link or download anything. It silently infiltrates your device, giving attackers full control over your calls, messages, and even your microphone. This isn't just about personal data, it's about power. Cyber espionage has become the ultimate weapon in modern geopolitics, with nations spying on each other, corporations stealing trade secrets, and activists being silenced by authoritarian regimes. These tools are being used to rewrite the rules of warfare, diplomacy, and even democracy. Welcome to Unlocked 403, cybersecurity podcast brought to you by ESET. My name is Bex, I'll be your host, and today with me I have Lukáš Štěfánko, a malware researcher who's already been on the podcast once before, so welcome back.
Hello, Bex. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it was really fun last time, so we had to talk to you again. You specialize in Android malware. So last time, and if you haven't seen that, make sure to click a link or in the description. Go watch that first episode. It was really interesting, and we had live demonstrations. That was really fun. Thank you for that. We don't have many guests doing those. But today, we're going to focus more on cyber espionage and spyware. What is the connection or the difference between traditional espionage and modern-day tools that we have now?
Well, the connection, their goal is actually the same, to obtain data, confidential information, documents. However, there are different techniques and tactics that were used in the past and these days.
But when you say in the past, are we talking 20 years ago, or are we talking Cold War, or are we talking what exactly? When did it start?
Before smartphones, I would say, before the computers were in every household, I would say. Cold War espionage, maybe. This was very popular back then, where it was necessary to have a physical infiltration, human agents being there at the place, placing bugs, taking photos, trying to create a rapport, connection with targets, build a relationship to lure, exfiltrate information. These days, I believe it's way easier, since everything is digitized, and they could leverage cyber tools to more effectively collect information and exfiltrate them, and even access them remotely. So it's way easier. It requests less resources, in my opinion.
Less resources?
Yeah.
What do you mean less resources?
Less human power, I would say.
Less
time.
Okay, yeah, but more digital resources.
Yeah, more digital resources.
Yeah. So what are some of the tools? Like what exactly is possible to do? You mentioned bugs and taking pictures. That was in the past. Is it the same now, just using the digital tools, or is it something else?
I would say that goal is the same. However, it's easier. Back then, the important files, data were only at one place, behind one door.
Okay.
And if you want to know where that is, you need to track the communication between the targets, which was difficult. These days, there are various computers. They are connected into the same network. People are bringing their own devices to an environment where secrets are. They connect to Wi-Fi networks. So there are more entry point to compromise smartphone that is not even in the company or the target area.
Okay. So you could do it en masse.
Yeah, it is possible to do it en masse.
One of the tools that is used is spyware, correct?
Correct.
What exactly is that?
Spyware is a malicious software that goal is to compromise smartphone, network, devices, computers to perform espionage, which means collect sensitive information, continue in surveillance, and exfiltrate all this data to the threat actor servers. There is spyware for every system, desktop, smartphones, IoTs, you name it.
Are they all malicious? Because you said malicious software, but is it all malicious?
All the spyware is malicious, since its goal is to extract information without the knowledge. It's very important. I forgot to tell that. Without knowledge of the target of the user. So
okay. And I suppose the devices that we have with us at all times are our phones, right? So those, I suppose, are mostly used for espionage purposes.
Yes, I believe they are the main target. The reason is that mobile espionage is a security concern because of they are widespread use by many people. I can state that almost everyone has a smartphone, if not two, and they have store enormous information, personal, sensitive, about their owner on one place, which makes it primary goal for espionage, in my opinion, which makes sense.
Yeah, and not just the owner, their families, friends,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
photos of their kids, everything. Yeah. Private messages. That's the scariest part for me when I read that actually like private messages that otherwise would be encrypted between those two people. Well, spyware can get through that encryption.
Yeah, exactly. Encryption in that case doesn't matter because the messages could be exfiltrated before they are encrypted.
Getting down to the technical, how does something like this get on my phone?
There are various ways, like three main one, I would say,
Okay.
how to infiltrate smartphone or devices. The first one is through malicious app, spyware that target needs to download and install.
Yeah, but if it says spyware, I'm not going to download it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Victim needs to be tricked into believing the app is not malicious, it's useful, and the app needs to stay on the smartphone as long as possible. So the attacker, threat actor is able to continue in surveillance, in gathering informations. The second one is a combination of phishing and social engineering. Again,
Can you explain those two terms?
phishing is a technique that threat actors try to obtain, lure some secrets. For example, credentials to internal network, social media, messaging applications. And social engineering, on the other hand, is a way how to make someone believe what you say is true, which means make them believe that the website they're trying to visit is legitimate and they need to enter the data.
Yeah. And that's wildly used in not just spyware, but like a lot of malicious activity online.
Yeah, definitely. It's very popular and easy, not technical requirements are there from the threat actor. So actually anyone can create such scenario and use it in the wild. So
And the third way how this
And the
can get on my device?
And the third one, I believe, is the most sophisticated,
Okay.
which is by misusing or exploiting vulnerability, security issues in the software or in apps that are running on the device.
But there's no way I can protect myself against that as a user. Or give
There,
me some hope.
yeah, I can give you some hope. I can think of two cases how you can protect against exploits, and the other one, there's no way to protect. There are two kinds of exploits. The first one, the exploits and vulnerabilities that were already disclosed. So there are patches, the software, the latest update of the system, of the apps can prevent infiltration.
Always update your operating system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the second are 0 days, which means issue security problems within the app systems that were not disclosed. So no one can identify them. Against that, it's very difficult to protect, to prevent. Most likely there's nothing that can be done, in my opinion.
Is there something about mobile phones specifically that makes them more vulnerable to such threats? Or are they equally as vulnerable as, let's say, computers or IoT devices or whatever? I'm not sure exactly which types of devices can spyware be on, but I'm guessing pretty much all of them.
There's a difference between smartphones and other devices, laptops, desktop computers, since at least when I finish my job at the laptop, I close the lid and the device is off.
Yes.
It's not connected to the internet. Contrary, smartphones, they are constantly connected to the internet, online 24/7, from at least mine. They're never turned off. They run various apps, 100 plus in many cases, that could create an initial access for the threat actor, again through vulnerabilities. We carry them with ourselves so they could track our location.
Can they listen to us?
Yes, spyware has a capability to enable microphone, record phone calls, surrounding audio, and yeah, they can listen to us.
Lovely. Okay, so mobile phones are more vulnerable because of what we do with them and how we use them, not because of how they're built.
There's another thing. Additionally, it's very important how they are built comparing to laptops because they have various interfaces. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC, GSM modules. And these interfaces communicate with outside world without knowledge of the owner, which means that if we have smartphone in our pockets, it tries to search for Wi-Fi networks to connect to. Do I know the network? If so, I can connect. So the device is online. Bluetooth devices, NFC payment is always on if it's enabled. GSM, we can receive messages anytime and calls, which is another factor how attack might appear, initial access. Maybe you remember last time I was here, I was talking about Blue Ducky tool
Yes.
that misuses Bluetooth vulnerability, and that's the same thing.
So that was spyware? No.
It wasn't spyware, but the technique could be used to spy because devices in the Bluetooth vicinity could control, execute own code on the targeted smartphone. So that's one of the actual cases that could be misused in the...
So hypothetically, I walk around with my smartphone with my Bluetooth always on because sometimes I want to connect it to my headphones or whatever. So it's always on. There's a malicious actor somewhere in my vicinity and they use the Blue Ducky script to do their stuff and install spyware on my phone?
Yeah, exactly like that. They could scan devices, Bluetooth devices in the vicinity, and they could actually scale that. So not just one device, one target, but everyone that is vulnerable. That's the reason, again, update your devices.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a leitmotif of this entire episode. Just patch vulnerabilities and update your system. That's a very good thing to do. So should I be turning off my Wi-Fi, my network, my Bluetooth, all of it? Is that what I should be doing unless I'm actively using them?
In my opinion, yes. If you're not using it, then I believe you should turn it off. It saves your battery. It decreases any malicious impact, even though we might think we are not the targets, but it's also still about the updates. So you're not using it, disable that. You're not paying at the store, turn off the NFC.
Yeah, and you might even save yourself from receiving photos that you were unsolicited. You, in the past, worked on spyware type research, Bad Bazaar.
Correct.
Yes. Can you tell me more about it? Because I am in the dark. I know you worked on it. I read your blogs, by the way, wheelofsecurity.com. But I don't really understand what it was. Can you, the basics, and build up?
The basics. Well, Bad Bazaar was a state-sponsored attack, APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, and the tool targeted smartphones, especially Android devices, with one special technique. Well, because the goal of the spyware is always to infiltrate the smartphone and stay on a device for as long as possible, which means if the spyware acts as application that does not work, most likely many of us, including me, would uninstall the application because I don't need not working app.
Of course.
So the goal is to create custom build application that has some functionality or Trojanize apps that are popular, that are used by many people. And it means that something that was not malicious is bundled with something malicious altogether and then distributed to targets.
But the non-malicious app would not know that it's being bundled with a malicious one, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The legitimate software or the developer can't tell that someone is misusing their application. It's very important. It's not a problem or issue from their side.
Right.
So the next goal of the threat actor is to distribute this malicious app, Bad Bazaar, bundle application to potential targets. And for that, they use, to make it more believable, landing websites. So they create a website that impersonates some legitimate service, messaging, secret messaging application, and distribute that to targets. If they believe that the app is legit, they download and they start to use it, which means that app stays on a smartphone, but at the same time, espionage surveillance is happening in the background.
And what exactly are the capabilities of Bad Bazaar?
Actually, it could steal various sensitive user information from the smartphone. And on top of that, what was a new feature we haven't seen before was a way how threat actor was able to pair their smartphone, their devices, with a targeted Signal account, which means that without any authentication, without any password to a face, they were able to exchange chat messages, make calls, and see the contacts.
Hold up, make calls?
Yeah,
Make calls.
Yeah, even make calls. They have the same privileges, access to their Signal account as the user.
What would be the purpose of?
The purpose is espionage on the Signal messages, on the Signal communication.
Yeah, but but specifically with making phone calls. Like, why?
I don't think they would make a calls, but there was a capability. If they wanted to make calls, they could.
Yeah, but hypothetically, why? Because I can't imagine a use for that.
Yeah, I don't think they would go through making calls. It's not really useful for them. But
maybe in the future, who knows? Is it still around? Or has it been patched, dealt with? Are there solutions, tools to make sure that Bad Bazaar doesn't get on my phone? I don't like the long pause.
I'm thinking about the question. Yeah, Bad Bazaar, we can prevent, and I believe any reputable security software can prevent a Bad Bazaar infiltrating a smartphone. However, the goal, the malware itself, and capabilities still out there in the wild, since this group is active and still performing espionage, trying to get access to devices of the specific targets.
Is spyware such as Bad Bazaar always distributed or engineered by an APT group, or can it be just a singular bad actor?
It could be individual threat actor. It doesn't need to be any sophisticated nation state, since it's very simple and easy to bundle legitimate application with some malicious code, not just spyware. We can talk about any other threats, banking malware, SMS trojans, adware, etc. So anyone can actually do that.
So how would a typical infiltration by spyware work? But what's the lifespan between downloading and getting rid of it, if I can get rid of it?
Well, many times spyware, the goal is not to reveal itself. However, there might be some indicators, very simple, like since spyware is running in the background, it might track network communication. All network communication, not really. It might track the location, the messages. It can record audio, photos, etc., which means that it drains more battery. Smartphone might get overheated. There is more consumption of the data of the internet.
Kind of like if it's connected to a botnet.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's using more power.
Yeah. However, these signs are not always there.
I was getting excited that it would be easy to spot. Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not that easy. What I would advise, if there is any assumption, something wrong with my smartphone, I would go through list of installed applications and manually check if there is some of them I have not installed, I don't recognize, and check their permissions.
So there is no way that spyware could be installed on my phone. This non-legitimate app could be installed on my phone without me somehow seeing it in my list of apps or on my home screen?
Yeah, it needs to be listed so it is visible, but it depends how it tries to hide itself. Because if the malware spyware impersonates system update, for many people, it would be like, okay, I'm not touching this. I cannot uninstall that. It needs to stay there.
Is that the case?
For many infiltration, yes, it is the case.
Okay.
So then it's very difficult to identify if the app is legit or not, because system apps could actually use permissions to access personal information. They could control them. So the next goal or idea, if not going manually through them, would be to use some automation, some tool mobile security, up to date, that does the job for the owner. Automatically scan the apps, finds, informs, removes, done. That's
Okay.
the fastest, in my opinion, way how to identify and get rid of the bad.
So just to have a peace of mind, there is no way spyware could be on my phone and it's completely untraceable. Please say yes.
Yes.
Good. Moving on.
That's the main goal. So yes, yeah.
Okay, now I'm confused. Is it always untraceable or is it somehow traceable sometimes? Because I'm thinking the best way to create, and I'm not giving tutorials, please do not quote me, but the best way to create spyware, which purpose is to spy on the owner of the device without them knowing, would be to create a spyware that is untraceable, that is not listed in the list of apps, that's not on the home screen, that's like completely invisible.
Okay. Correct. That would be the best case scenario ever, but it's not possible.
Good.
However, there are cases when it's possible to have spyware which is not listed, not visible, not traceable. But in this case, we talk about very sophisticated piece of software, such as Pegasus.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Pegasus. It's been in the news for years and maybe more so lately.
One of the most popular espionage tools that targets smartphones, smart devices. Pegasus is created by companies. Companies sell that to governments, and governments use them. And the idea is to use this tool against terrorist crime, organized crime.
Well, that sounds legit.
Yeah, it makes
Sounds
sense.
like a good use.
Yeah. However,
there's always a but or a however with researchers. Oh my goodness.
Government is run by people, and people start to misuse the software to spy on opposition politics, on journalists that don't agree with the politics, with dissidents, with activists, and others.
General population? Could it be used?
I don't think the general population is a target of Pegasus, so there are specific targets, specific individuals.
So it's not like a government would decide we'll just spy on all of our citizens and just deploy Pegasus on multiple millions of people.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because the Pegasus costs $1 million+ So it's a very expensive tool to spy on citizens if there is no actual goal or any specific outcome that government would expect. So I don't think so.
Okay. So this one is untraceable.
Correct. That's the one that is untraceable, and what's the most interesting thing about the Pegasus is that instead of downloading the application, as I mentioned before, or visiting a phishing website, this one can infiltrate the device without any user interaction by exploiting vulnerabilities in a smartphone.
Is that what we call zero click?
Exactly. 0 click of 0 day. Yeah.
Lovely. So without the user doing anything or knowing anything, it can just appear on the device.
Yeah, exactly. To illustrate maybe the scenario, in the past, it was distributed through text messages where the device, so threat actor, all they need is a phone number. They would send specially crafted text message. The text message was received automatically, as I mentioned before, because it communicates with outside world. And just by receiving, it would exploit the vulnerability, no user interaction. Text message was afterwards removed. And
by itself. It's self-destructed.
Correct. By itself. It started exploitation chain, downloaded Pegasus, and Pegasus was then stored in a system directories, which means it's not listed for the user in the list of apps.
That's why I was asking. Yeah. So not always listed. If a government, because a lot of times if a government does, and I don't want to get into politics too much, but if a government makes a purchase of such magnitude, as you said, it's quite expensive, this tool, it's probably disclosed in some way to the public. So the public would know that their government have bought such tool? Or is there a way for them to not disclose it and keep it completely silent?
I believe the goal is to keep it silent. It's confidential information, not meant for public. And if it is out, it means that there was some whistleblower, some documents was disclosed, which were not meant to be disclosed. And then there are some actions. Most likely it happens years after the espionage. There's a different government, everything was replaced or changed. And they could trace back the invoices, for example, for such software.
What's the main difference between Bad Bazaar and Pegasus? Apart from how it gets into your device, like its capabilities, is there a difference?
There are some differences. Bad Bazaar, but these differences are only in implementation and the implementation way, which means that they could have the similar functionality, malicious functionality to access data. However, they decided not to, most likely to not be disclosed because of all the requested permissions, for example. So Pegasus has some more features to collect the information, continuous surveillance. It's not that easy to be removed. Stealing text messages, enabling camera, microphone, getting access to contacts, exchange messages on social media, messaging application, you name it.
Right. Do you think tools such as Pegasus, for example, should be regulated globally?
Since they has been misused, I believe they should be regulated. It makes sense
By
to
whom?
protect. Well, by the state itself, but there's a clash, so
Right.
there needs to be on a higher level. There were some regulations, there were some sanctions against the companies that sell such software. But in my opinion, I don't think that's enough to prevent the software being produced and being sold to governments, since there's always a request. And there will be a company that will be created next day, next week. There will be forks to bypass any rules or restrictions.
How do I get rid of it? Pegasus, spyware. Or can I never get rid of Pegasus? Is that what you're saying, that it can just welcome itself into my device without me knowing and just stay there forever?
It might be a case that it was possible back then. These days, or some latest report, all the technical details are not available, so I can't state if it is possible to get rid of it or not. However, if it is stored in a system partition of the smartphone, then it would be very, very difficult, maybe not possible, because by factory reset it's not possible to get rid of the application. On the other side, since me and you, we are not target of Pegasus, most likely.
Hopefully.
Not anyone that is watching or listening us.
Okay, good.
So on the other hand, spyware, this is way easier to get rid of. As I told before, there are manual ways. You need to go through application list and manually scroll, identify the application. There's something weird about that. Should I remove it or not? It takes some time.
But by removing it, I get rid of it.
Yes, by removing it, you get rid of it. So defense is very easy once the problem is identified. That's very important.
So there's no like specific tool or app or solution that I need to use in order to get rid of such malware as spyware.
Correct, if you can identify the application.
However, but if. Lovely. I'm adding it to the list of things researchers say.
That's the tough one, to find the problem. So if you can't find the problem, then I would suggest to use tools that could identify the problem, if there is, and they automatically get rid of the spyware. And I mean some security software that would scan the device and keeps the smartphone protected against the threats, against the apps that you and me are downloading to our devices.
Could we say go through the list of your apps once a month or once every 2 months? Just scroll through it, make sure there's nothing weird in there?
I don't think that's important. In my opinion, the prevention is a goal. So to be aware
Prevention first.
Prevention first. To be aware of the risks, not installing apps from not legitimate sources, not allowing them extensive sets of permissions that would access private information. And if so, then we need to understand why we're allowing all these permissions.
And to protect myself against government-grade spyware?
Well, that's
What
a tough one.
prevention? Yeah, what prevention is there even?
There's not much of a prevention, I could say. However, it's always good to keep up with the updates of the apps we have installed, because Pegasus and software alike could exploit issues in popular applications as well, not just in the system itself, and update the system itself. So, because there are possibilities that not just 0 days, which means security problems that were not disclosed yet, and patches were deployed, could be misused, but also security issues that were patched and they tried to exploit devices, the targets that didn't go through the update process. We see that in the past. So it's important to stay up to date, and then that's, I guess, all we can do against nation, state, government spyware.
What would be the top 3 pieces of advice to stay safe? Not just against spyware, but in general. What do you recommend people do first?
I believe it's important to download apps we know what they do from legitimate sources and always think about their functionality. I also advise them to read reviews, comments from the stores, because if the app has some shady functionality or if it does something that it shouldn't.
Yeah, a flashlight doesn't need to read your messages, for example.
I'm sure of that. That's one of the cases, exactly.
Yeah.
So the people would go, take extra time, go back to store and write the review. So that's a red flag for anyone who'd like to install app. So install apps only from official sources. Make sure not to visit phishing websites, which means ideally take extra time to identify if the website is legit or not. There's software for that, so you don't have to spend extra time on that. And the last one, the third one, I would say, even though if your social media accounts, financial accounts are anyhow compromised through phishing, malware, etc., then I would advise to use multi-factor authentication to prevent access to the account. So it's way difficult to obtain funds, access to your services.
Well, thank you so much for that. Again, and I say this every single time, I've learned more than I wanted to, and I'm more horrified than I was before. So thank you. Lovely. No, it was lovely talking to you again. Thank you for coming. Where can people find you?
I'm active on social media. There is X, there is a LinkedIn, and I also publish my research on willifsecurity.com. So if you're interested in mobile threats, Android malware, feel free to check it out.
Perfect. We'll link it down below or in the description in case someone's listening or watching. That's a difference. All right. Thank you again. And thank you for watching. I hope you learned a lot of new stuff. I certainly did. I hope you now know how to protect yourself and stay safe from spyware, at least to the extent that you can. Stay safe, stay secure, follow us on all of our social media to never miss a future episode. And I'll see you next time.